Is it me or is he breaking up?
Welcome to another episode of Coder Conversations. Today we have special guest Justin Greer. Welcome to the show, man.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me on, Kevin.
Oh man, glad to have you. Man, how you doing, Justin and Raja?
I'm
Doing
doing good.
good?
Yeah.
So yeah, Justin, can you give the audience a little bit of background about yourself? What is your tech stack? How did you get into tech?
yeah, so I decided I wanted to be a software engineer around a year and a half ago, and went into a boot camp for that called Hack Reactor. Graduated from that. The tech stack there is JavaScript, React, some backend services like Express and SQL. You learn a few databases. Postgres, you get to pretty much play with the main three, I think: SQL, Postgres, and Mongo. Um, you build a couple projects, and then after, in general, it took about 3 months to do that, and then I was job searching, and now I'm a software engineer at a startup based out of Irvine called Service Mob.
Okay, interesting. Now, what made you want to get into technology in the first place?
So my background is actually I studied philosophy at University of Colorado at Boulder, and I envisioned a future for myself in the legal sector. But as I got closer to that, I realized um, it wasn't where I wanted to be. And so I was collecting all of my favorite things about philosophy and debate and logic. And I always excelled the most in the LSAT prep at the logic game sections. And so I was planning on becoming a lawyer. And I found that coding was and algorithms and everything was basically the same as those logic game sections, just kind of dealing with meta variables and how they interact and then kind of creating cool algorithms. So yeah, I just started doing it and I very quickly realized, um, you know, being an engineer was my greatest passion. So
How did you discover the boot camp that you went to? What decision making went into that?
it was a pretty difficult decision. I had done a lot of research on different camps, General Assembly, Flatirons, Hack Reactor. There's probably a few more. Talked to, I think I messaged almost everyone I knew. A lot of my gaming friends were coders as well, so I asked for a lot of information from them. Um, and before kind of getting started on any of this, all of those programs pretty much have a free or kind of a basic prep program that you can do. So I did a lot of those. Really thought it was my thing. I was interested in it, and I just kind of narrowed down the search onto Hack Reactor, and then figured out what stages and steps of preparation I need to take to enroll and how much it would cost, and figure out a whole trajectory with that.
You feel like your boot camp sufficiently prepared you for your job, or was there kind of a gap there?
Yeah, I really do. I think it prepared me pretty well for my job. My boot camp was really hard, in my opinion, and it required a lot of independence and um, just self-motivating ability to. Honestly, the biggest thing was being able to self-motivate yourself in confidence to say, I can do this. I just need to look at the documentation. Because there were plenty of times where I felt like I got dropped off a cliff in the description and just needed to kind of like figure things out. Um, and I feel like them consistently dropping me off cliffs adequately prepared me for my job.
Got it. So how did you go from boot camp to getting your first job? How long did it take you, and what was the process like?
Process was pretty difficult. It took me 3 months total to find a job. The first, I would say, about month, it was challenging because I had never I don't know how else to say it, just professionally job searched before as a a 20-year-old that was really trying to build a, professional resume and stand out. And um, especially the types of questions people asked you, I found that my boot camp didn't really prepare me for that. And I kind of quickly realized that having the skills to be a good interviewer and being a good coder aren't the same thing. And so it took me about a month, I would say, to learn and develop that skill only as much as I have to date. And then at that kind of week 5, 6 range, I started getting a little bit more return on my investment from that, and ended up getting 2 offers at around 3 months, and ended up taking one of them.
So yeah, you kind of mentioned being a good interviewer doesn't necessarily correlate with being a good coder. What are some of the distinctions?
It's a good question. I would say that knowing how to use the vocabulary of a coder is not something that anyone really teaches you as a junior. I think using the right terminology, or let me restate, using the wrong terminology can, I think, instantly forfeit your um, v- viability of a job. If someone just thinks that you described a component the wrong way, they're just like not going to want to work with you. Um, in terms of the small talk and how you kind of navigate conversations, tell me a little about yourself, or like things like that. I honestly just had to practice narratives about myself that didn't feel fake and felt real, and they told some real story. And then, Amazon's 10 star tips or something that you have to choreograph a response to those. So I started kind of outlining responses to everything, and it was just a bit two-dimensional and needed to add personality to it, but I was nervous and I felt underprepared. And so um, I just felt like I needed to add personality into my interviews, which was the hardest part. And I don't think there's any personality in coding, or maybe not that strict, but something like that.
Yeah, I noticed like a lot of juniors, when they're first trying to get in the industry, they face a ton of rejection, ton of no's. Like, how did you get past all of those rejections and keep this, have the will to keep going?
I wasn't deterred at all by rejections. I'm not. I mean, I guess they impact anybody. I was more trying to hit my goal of um, 100 apps a month, so it was just 25 a week. I
Hmm.
thought that was realistic. Um, at first I was clicking on the easy applies for like principal software engineer, just so I could like, raise that total. But I kind of realized I need to check the job description and check the years of experience on it and check the tech stack. And I figured out kind of more efficient ways of looking at those details. Um, I had a career services advisor from my boot camp, and I really appreciated all of her input. We met weekly, and she just constantly reassured me in ways that I think my friends and family really couldn't. Um, from my family, it felt like, get a job already, forehead, and from my friends, it was like, keep going, you'll get something. Um, but from my career advisor, she was telling me all the reasons why I was on the right track, and that if I just kept up where I was at, that I would get it eventually. And I think the things that she provided were really useful.
Yeah. How many people from your from your cohort basically graduated, and how many got the job?
Um, Everyone in my cohort graduated. There were, I think, 28 of us, which was the smallest cohort. The next one had, I think, 110 or something, which we thought was crazy. But um, as far as the graduation rate, Um, I think it was about half. Everyone was kind of guaranteed. Jake actually is one of my cohort mates. Jake is actually, or I think about half of us graduated within, or found jobs within 3 months. But the projections on their website that Hack Reactor advertises is that they'll get a job. They're guaranteed or 98% sure to get a job within 6. So I would probably say about half have jobs right now, especially given the market.
Uh, do you guys have to do some kind of exam for you to get into Hack Reactor, like an assessment or something?
Yeah, so I've a few people have reached out to me saying that they're interested in participating in the program, and they were kind of just asking me how it went and things like that. And they're saying that there's now a 19-week program um, that is kind of starting from scratch. I did a 12-week program, but before the 12-week program, I spent about 3 months prepping for it. Um, the amount of preparation or I think the preparation really it helped me a lot in my program because it taught me how to do things alone and figure things out and Google search stuff. Um, and I definitely highly recommend doing this self-paced study, especially because you don't really pay anything for that until you enter the program, and then it's like a $20,000 fee. So um, the prep work was pretty difficult.
So, do they accept everybody that's coming into the program?
Oh, no.
No.
At least when I was doing it, you had to there were a few gating exams. One of them was called the technical assessment that was at around like the 10-week mark. And then um, after that, you're like, oh, I'm good, right? But no, there's prep materials that I think is about 150 hours of pre-course materials. It's funny, they call it like basic prep and then premium prep, and then they get you into like technical assessment prep, and then you have pre-course work. And I don't know why they call it all different things, but it takes about 3 months. And I had two pretty serious gating exams, one the technical assessment and two the pre-course work. And I was sweating for both of them. I was really nervous I wouldn't pass them.
What would happen if you failed? Like, would they
Oh,
just like kick you out?
I think on the technical assessment you get 3 attempts. And on the pre-course work, you were given basically about 45 or 50 days to complete, like I said, 150 hours of coursework independently. And if you just didn't complete it in time, then you would have to um, register for the subsequent program. But the importance of that was that the speed and the pace of learning and doing the pre-course work was supposed to match the pace of the program. And so if you couldn't keep up with that kind of pace, then that was a pretty poor indicator that you would be as successful in the program. Not saying that's not possible, but it definitely would have left me a little nervous if I had to defer to the next uh, session.
Oh, oh, okay. So, like, do they still give me my money back if they like kick me out or something and I failed the thing 3 times?
Oh, well, yeah, I don't think you would pay anything until the first day the program started.
Okay.
So yeah, they weren't, it wasn't scary like that.
What made you choose this instead of the other ones?
Um, I chose it specifically because they had a Seattle cohort, and I really wanted to do an in-person cohort. I later learned that the Seattle in-person got disbanded, and I think they just didn't have the staff for it during COVID, and so I ended up doing the remote full-time Pacific cohort, and that this was right in the middle of COVID as well. I guess we're
Were
still
there
in it. I
any
don't know.
Were there any extracurricular activities you did outside of the boot camp to step out? I mean, to stand out, such as start a blog or a YouTube channel or create side projects?
Um, so is this during the program or is this me in general?
Or yeah, during the program or after the program?
So yeah, for projects, one of the projects we had during um, the course was MVP, and we just had to design. We had about a week to design our own project based on everything we knew. We were full stack capable, I guess you could say at that time, and so it was just basically a for fun project of choice. And I ended up doing a project based on Rocket League, actually, the video game, where it would track your in-game statistics um, in a readable way that would give you actionable results about how you did during that game. And so, for example, like your speed would be measured, your goals or your shooting percentage, and then you'd be able to kind of check the low bar and the high bar and see where yours landed, and then know, oh, okay, like maybe I'll take less shots next game or something. So, and it would have little hints that said, this is what you need to work on for the next game. And then the goal was, I was trying to gamify it, and the goal was to get everything in the green so that you played a perfect game or something like that.
Did you guys use NoSQL or SQL for that?
Well, I use Postgres for that,
Okay.
but I guess SQL.
So Rocket League has an API that you can just grab the
Yeah,
data from. Okay.
yeah, you can. It's really cool. It's called ball chasing.
No?
Did you find your project really helped you out during the interview process? Like, did they say, "Hey, what have you worked on in your free time? Can you show us?"
No, I actually didn't elaborate on that project in particular because I'd only spent about a week building it. The course itself actually offered three other main projects. So the first month and a half was basically all lectures and studying and tests and things like that. And then the last month and a half of the entire course was three distinct projects, being a front-end capstone, a system design project, and then the third one was kind of a full stack project as well. So, and then those were the three projects that, took up my three interview spot or my three resume spots. I'm sure everyone in my program did the same thing. And it was just, with the intention of trying to get the most diverse amount of project experience.
Did you guys like use like cloud architecture for your system design part of
Y-
it?
Yeah, yeah, we deployed multiple instances on Amazon Web Services, EC2 instances, um, for the front end, for the back end, we had some people had load balancers or caching systems in place, and things like that. So, and yeah, we all had to make sure we canceled our cloud subscriptions so that we didn't
Yeah,
get.
I remember having an AWS subscription. That thing was giving me like $20 per month, $30 per month. I'm like,
Yep,
I need to
yep.
cancel this thing. That's pretty
But
nice that they're actually like teaching you the architecture, the system design part of it, so that you can learn like how the cloud works.
yeah, it definitely helped a lot. The system design project, I think, was probably the most hated across the entire cohort, um, but I had a lot of fun working on it.
It's pretty nice because I've seen like a lot of boot camps like don't stress on that part, and when you actually go to the job and they're like, "Oh, you need to push this to AWS," I'm like, I don't know what AWS is. I don't know how to push this over there.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense.
So we have a question from the audience from Joseph Walker. What were some tips, hacks that you have for staying on course and keeping on track with the course curriculum?
The interesting thing I learned about my course was that you didn't actually have to finish all the content. You just had to stay mentally upright. And so for me, I'm competitive in a lot of things and I've really enjoyed finishing my work. I think um, making sure that you just don't sacrifice certain features of your life. Like you don't spend an extra hour trying to solve this algorithm because you really need that hour of sleep so that you can survive the next day. Um, Things like that. As far as staying on course, you just kind of constantly had to have this attitude of, I don't know and I'll figure it out, and kind of just had to do it with a smile. And there were just so many turns and opportunities where right when you think you figured something out, we would just stop doing that and start something else. And um, in general, you just that mindset just becomes part of who you are.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So you took that mindset on your job. What was it like the first day on your job?
Oh God. All right, Sean, this one's for you.
Sean,
So,
Sean's probably
so,
listening to this, so you need to.
um, so, fun fact: I was told coming in as a junior developer from this boot camp that I had to completely rewrite the company's app from scratch using a new framework that I had never heard of before, and I had about like 3 months to do it.
Hmm.
So yeah, I got tasked with that and was working on that for a while, just baby steps at first, and I ended up completing that project before getting all my company logins.
Oh
How
wow.
did
So
you?
oh, go
How
ahead,
did you?
Roger.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, how did you figure out the new? I think it's Svelte, right? That's what you used,
It's called
probably.
Svelte, yeah.
Yeah, because Sean was talking about this in the previous podcast conversation. So, how did you figure it out? Like, how did you figure out Svelte? Like, I know, like, you have a React background, but how did you come to Svelte?
So I just Googled it, and it brought me to this tutorial. Um, and it was just a Svelte tutorial, and Sean just told me to do that. Spent like a week doing that, um, and then I honestly, more than anything, Svelte was so friendly to HTML and CSS that if you understood HTML, then you just understood Svelte. Um, passing um, passing information, dispatching information between components to routes and things like that, or vice versa, was all very easy. They had these things called stores, and so I just found the Svelte equivalent to React processes, like React hooks and things like that. Or oftentimes, a lot of the things that I was googling was, what's the Svelte equivalent to like a use context hook or something like that. And then I would just read this article on that, figure out how it works, and then start using it.
Did you build the architecture out, like the code architecture, before you moved from React to Svelte? Or
Um, no, I think if I'm understanding your question correctly, we just started with a blank page and started adding screen by screen.
yeah, because like you in your React code, you probably have like hooks or like like your own hooks on top of hooks.
Hmm.
So like that architecture, like did you know before moving all that into the new one to Svelte or
Oh,
no?
did I know how the old
Yeah.
dashboard worked? No, I was strictly told not to look at that for any you know, advice or motivation because the previous way of doing things was not best practice. It was not reusable. Um, and it was very driven into my brain that if I needed help, that I couldn't look at that. Um, and I had to figure out how to use it the right way.
uh, it's pretty nice that Sean let you do all that. Like you had your creative side of things while probably doing that work.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I know a lot of junior developers. They're kind of scared of asking for help. How long did you work on a problem before asking for help, and how did you go about it?
Oh, that's a good question. So, I got to give you some backstory here because the first, um, I think the first 3 weeks or month that I joined the company, um, I hadn't really worked with Sean at all, and I was given tasks, and I wasn't really given a lot of direction because our clients had certain requirements, and he was busy doing other things. And so Sean kept kind of sending me links and asking me to look at stuff, and after a while, and I think this is a really great um, path to take if you have the time to invest in juniors, is that he told me, I don't care if it takes you 3 days, wherein it would take me 1 hour. If you haven't exhausted every single route to answer this question or entertain the solution, then you shouldn't message me yet. And he wasn't like blocking me from asking him for help. And I certainly had moments early on where I was like, I really can't figure out how to get this drop down to work. But I remember that was one of my biggest issues at first. But um, every time I would type out a message to him, I would kind of like sit about it and think, and then slowly delete the message, and then Google some more and try to figure it out. And it just really felt like he didn't care how long it took, and he really was supportive of my learning in a way that gave me the confidence to be autonomous down the line. But it definitely took some time for him to instill that perspective in me.
Yes, it's a very good approach. You know, you definitely want to allow juniors to figure things out before they start reaching out for help, because otherwise they start becoming dependent on seniors. So, how
Mhm.
long did you say it took you before you were confident that you could pretty much solve most problems without having to reach out?
Um, I feel like I feel like it must have taken me about um 2 months until I could start, I guess, standing up for myself and arguing something, because typically I don't go to Sean pleading for, question or pleading for answers or trying to like figure things out. I go to him and saying like, "Hey, this thing like really doesn't make sense for all these reasons." And then Sean's like, "Yeah, because it was designed poorly, or like because it doesn't make sense, or because it's built incorrectly." And so um, I'd say it took me about 2 months to gain that backbone and start to realize the difference between me not understanding something versus like something else just being difficult or out of my league or something like that.
I know a lot of juniors, when they first start, they have that thing called imposter syndrome where they don't feel like they belong, they're not good enough. Did you have that, and how did you overcome those feelings?
I know a lot of people in my cohort talked about that a lot. A lot of the shepherds and overseers mentioned that as well and said it was okay. It's really not something that I ever truly battled with. And whenever I was presented something, I would kind of always say like, "Oh, cool! Like I have no idea how that works, but I think it'd be cool to figure it out." And because of the position I was given in my company, to rebuild this thing from scratch, I had built it the way you would expect any junior to, rebuild an app. And the coolest part about it was that as more team members got in and um, more time was allocated, they started improving all of the basic, API queries that I had created, and the login system and the pages, and he started exporting functionality out and importing it in certain places. And so I got to actively watch, what would have been a junior level project transform into a startup level app. Um, and they just started leveling up every corner of the company. Now I was working very closely with my coworker Roger, who spent a lot of time teaching me how to bring everything from, I guess, junior level to our level. Um, so as far as imposter syndrome, it just, I guess it never really occurred to me, and I was always really excited to see how things could be optimized.
So, what were some of the biggest changes you saw in the code, like back then compared to now?
There is this there's these layers for API calls that um, they all become function calls, and so instead of needing to specify um, the API request type like a get or a post, you can just send it certain parameters that you want, and then other functions down the line sort of build the call for you. And so we just like removed a lot of, I guess, the hard part about API calls, and only put in the specific things like to what endpoint and what two parameters do you need to pass it. And so we just have a function call on each page that only passes those three parameters in, and that's really all you need. Um, and then other things like the CSS turned into SCSS. We started focusing on how the HTML is structured and how the components are designed. So that was a really cool upgrade. Um, and then designing components in a way, Sean's been teaching me how to design components and how you really want them to be headless, or at least we're building headless components so that you can use them more in a bunch of ways. And so a lot of my component designs were containing like had multiple atomic elements to them, like instead of being broken down into smaller pieces. So I was trained to break things into smaller pieces, and then they're much more reusable that way. They're much easier to use. Um, and overall, kind of doing this for every single screen.
Man,
For those that don't
I
understand, what is headless?
Headless is when a component is made that isn't given styles. and so it isn't. Yeah, it's just not given any styles, and so it's basically like a table without any styles appended to it, so that when it's used by someone, the user gets to decide how it looks, but it would work and function the way you expect it to.
Honestly, I hate that this abstraction, I think that's what it's called. Like everything is abstracted into like small, 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 small. It goes down all the way that if you have an error at the top, you have to check like which component it is in. Actually, like you have to go deep on every single thing. But
Mhm.
it will help you out when you're trying to refactor your code though. Like you can just change the top part and all the bottom ones will change. We have like I've written some components just like that. It's cool that you guys are doing it and you're learning it like early on.
Yeah.
Were there any big name coders that you followed and that you kind of look up to?
Um, Honestly, I have a couple of friends of mine that I think are um just one of my friends, Ryan, he works at Chewy, and he was a college grad in CS and got a job working at Amazon after college, and then now works at Chewy. He gave me a lot of advice. I have another friend who's a senior um, engineer at Salesforce, and he's been interviewing me and giving me a lot of tips. But um, as far as followers and things like that, I'm not too um, available on social media. But I'll definitely tune into your podcast more often.
Oh yeah, most definitely, man. If you don't mind sharing, what was some of the best advice you've been given?
Ryan always told me to figure it out myself. Funnily, Sean taught me that though when he refused to help me. uh, I would recommend not viewing it as a challenge that you need to overcome, but just kind of like a cool puzzle that you get to figure out. Um, my friend Monty told me to just constantly be doing leak code and algorithms and things like that. Constantly be maintaining that skill. You never know when you're going to want to apply or anything. Um, and he told me to focus on back end things as well because um, that's just where I guess the money is, and that's it's where the I don't know. He just told me to focus on it. So I've made it more of a point to understand how our backend architecture works, as well as I'm interested in meeting with our data science team, and it's really actually helped me um, as an engineer in general because now I get to understand how data flows through our entire system, and it helps me in a lot of debugging, knowing whether it's a front end issue, a back end issue, or a data science issue.
Oh yeah, it's definitely some good advice. Like so, one of the things programmers really face is burnout. How do you avoid getting burnt out, and what do you do outside of work to kind of keep keep level?
Mhm. Um, I really like coding. I think it's really fun. One of the reasons I'm in this discipline is because it's so engaging. It's so, mentally demanding, and I mean, I just think it's fun. As far as burnout, um, I'll play games from time to time. I work out every morning. My company gives me the some time in the morning and lets me work later, so I do workouts and in general, I kind of run my own schedule at my company, so I don't experience a lot of burnout. If I need to take time, then I can. Um, but then if someone calls me, then I, don't mind at all hopping on and answering a call for however long. Um, as far as burnout, I think my company does a great job, and I think software engineering in general does a great job um, at work-life balance. Um, I feel like I'd be more I've been more frustrated at a problem that I can't solve, which makes me uninclined to work than just not interested in doing any work. Um, but I'm always kind of thinking about problems and how to optimize things. So I don't know if I really answered your question, but I don't experience a lot of burnout.
Uh,
Oh, go ahead, Raja.
yeah. How much did like networking help you while you were searching for your job?
Um,
Like the people around you or the people you knew before you got into, you know, the boot camp.
yeah, so I learned my boot camp taught me how to network a lot better, and they made it really important that they can't build my network for me. And I started to kind of view um, having a big network and having outreach, posting on LinkedIn and things like that as not as much of a chore, but just as part of a professional identity that you need to uphold. And I started just friending people and becoming comfortable. My company lets me go to WeWorks, and I'll post in our WeWork general, like if anyone wants to add me on LinkedIn. And um, I also, when people message me, I met with this wonderful woman named Mindy on LinkedIn, who sent me a message that was like, "Hey, I am interested in going to this boot camp that you graduated from. Do you have some time?" And I just said, "Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to talk about it." Um, so I don't know. I wouldn't say I have like the biggest outreach or anything like that, but it's just better to be open-minded about that. And I wasn't really at first. I found LinkedIn to be a chore, and I found updating my resume to be a chore. And I think it's just something that everybody has to do. And once you get closer to accepting that, then it no longer becomes this thing that you have to do and this thing that you marginally get better at over time until, maybe you gain as big a following as Kevin or something like that and, have cool conversations like these. So,
Kevin has CEOs hitting him up. Okay.
yeah, Kevin,
He's
how
big
did you
at
build
this
your
part.
network?
Well, initially, I kind of faced like the same problem as you. Like I had to make a game of all of the failure. Like I'm gonna make sure I fail 10 times a day minimum. So hit up all of these people. And when you first get in the industry, you don't have any experience. Recruiters aren't hitting you up. It's like a ghost town. So I had to start doing stuff like I'm gonna just add 10 people a day or 15 people a day. I'm gonna connect with 15 people a day. And slowly but surely that starts building up your network. Now, what I do now is I always make sure to continually post to keep my visibility up, like whether it's code related thoughts, like you have a philosophical background, so allows you to think on a deeper level, so you can actually think of interesting scenarios in your mind and how it applies to tech. So you might not want to post it, but I would say go ahead and post it and ask for the feedback. Hey, what do you guys think about this? Like, you have to do things to get people to engage you. Like, you have to make them participate, and treat it like you say. You don't want to treat it like a job to where it's a chore. Like, I got to post on LinkedIn. Like, the big thing really is just having fun and kind of fostering interesting conversations, and a lot of it starts coming naturally. Like when people see you regularly, like it's like you go to a restaurant. When you start going there every day, people start knowing your name, and people start hearing about you. Your reputation builds, and just based off of that alone, you're going to start getting opportunities. You're going to get people to hit you up. So that's why I say it's really, really important to keep your visibility up, to engage with people. And I don't really like the term networking, because it's almost like, okay, I'm going to use you for this purpose. You use me for this purpose. I like kind of like building relationships and interacting with people. And if you get in a regular habit of doing that, the results start coming in. What about you, Roger? How did you build your network?
Yeah, I have no network, so please don't ask me about that. I'm trying to do that right now on LinkedIn, but I have zero network. I didn't do much. I mean, I just applied to jobs on LinkedIn. That's what I use it for. But I'm trying to get out because I at this point, like I do want to help some people. Like whatever knowledge that I get, I want to put it out there so that other people can take it. Because people on LinkedIn help me out. Like I read posts all the time. They kind of help me out or other places, so I want to give them the same knowledge that I have.
So Jake has a question. Do you have any career goals you'd like to hit in the near or distant future?
One of my goals is to create a component that satisfies like the atomic design theory, but something that's more complex, um, like a date calendar picker or a date filter or something like that, where it can toggle between um, different days or types or weeks or months or things like that. Um, I want to build something, like that. That's just a very complex component, and then put it on a just leave it out to the Svelte community in the public community so that they can reuse it whenever they want. Um, and yeah, I just want to design it so well that I'm proud for it and it's headless and so people can reuse it. And I want to document it and things like that so that it's there and available to the community. And then I get to use it because, I think like you said, Raja, anything that I know, I hope to, let other people flourish with that as well. So that's one of my goals. Another one of my goals is to not be so lost in conversations when my DevOps coworker talks to Sean because they'll clue me into conversations and they'll use a lot of words that I don't know yet. And I'm constantly Googling, barely hanging on, it feels like, to the conversation. Um, and so I don't really know how a junior does this, but it's one of my goals to just really improve my vocabulary and make sure I don't ever misspeak when I'm talking about certain um, ways of doing things, whether it's deployment or back-end development or anything, or even talking about design components. I want to be able to describe the name of the right component. You don't want to call something the wrong thing, which is very important. So, yeah, I would say build a component and improve my vocabulary and hopefully get a raise at some point.
Exactly. So yeah, to kind of flip the tables a bit, did you have any questions for us?
Yeah, so I guess you guys, it's been a long time since you were juniors, but did you go through any kind of program or was it mostly self-taught?
Oh, you can go first, Roger.
But I have not much. So you should go first, Kevin. Mine is
Oh,
pretty. I should say mine is pretty small compared to Kevin. So I'm going to let him go.
sure, man. So actually, my degree is in accounting. I wanted to actually get in the finance industry, like running mutual funds and all of that stuff. So I really like enjoy philosophy and all of that as well, because it helps you think critically. But like me being from a small town, there wasn't that many. There wasn't a lot of those kind of jobs, and I got the accounting degree, and I found out like that kind of stuff is kind of boring. Is really boring to me. So um, I was working at a hotel, like the Marriott Hotel, overnight, doing night audit, front desk. So um, that I was reading like posts on message boards, like, "Hey, you can make six figures in tech. You can make six figures in programming without a degree." So I did have a degree, but it was not in software. But I just decided, like, let me try this out. So I just started teaching myself programming on a little work computer. Like, the cool thing about JavaScript is you don't need to install software on a computer. Really, you could just use Notepad if you have to, and create HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and open it up in a browser. So I was kind of experimenting with that, and I also had to do some reports, and they were like really tedious. So I started experimenting with VBA, and I was actually able to utilize that to make work that took hours down to like 10, 20, 30 minutes. And it's like, wow, this is really powerful, and I'm actually able to do something. So after a while, I eventually say, yeah, let me just focus on this full time. And I took a year off of work, and I just started studying full time, just going hard at it, you know, uh, buying books, going through the whole book, doing recreating the projects, going through courses. The big thing for me was learning how to train my mind, how to take something big and break it down. It's kind of like, like say you have a steak, you can't just swallow the steak whole. You have to cut it into smaller pieces to make it more digestible. So, say you have 1,000-page book, that might sound like almost impossible to read, but if you read 10 pages for 90 days, so 3 months, you have most of the book read. So it's just really staying disciplined and breaking things down into chunks. And after about a year, I started applying, and interestingly enough, I find like it's the opportunity you don't really expect to come through is the one that ends up coming through, because I lived in Killeen, and I wanted to get a job in Austin because that's only an hour away. But there was one job posting in Dallas. I was like, I don't really want to work out there, but I just applied to it anyways, and that's where I ended up getting a job. So, that's an important lesson I found is just put it out there, even if you don't think that it's important, because that's how a lot of people also blew up on social media. Like they're just doing something stupid, and somebody say, "Hey man, just record it and put it out there," and that's the opportunity that just really blows up for them. So, how about you, Roger?
No, mine is pretty boring, I guess, compared to you guys. But like, I did my master's in computer science, got the job, have been working as a front end developer at a startup just like you. But mine is like way smaller, I guess, compared to you guys. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Pretty boring, I guess, compared to you guys have like a whole like monologue of story and prologue. But me, it's like
Well,
got a degree, got the job, moved on.
well, it's all about struggle, and I think I'd have to say about like 90% of my cohort was career pivoting. So,
The people.
oh, did I disconnect?
Yeah, it's all good. I think we're all here. Yeah, like that's what I've seen with a lot
There
of
we go.
boot
Look
camps.
like
Like,
Melon app cut out.
yeah, I was saying a lot of people pivot a lot in their careers or in their lives, basically,
Hmm.
and most of them like it is good to do a coding job. It's fun. You learn a lot of things, and you have to be learning every day. I guess that's that's bad on that part because you have to always be updated on every single thing that's happening in your tech world. Because one day, just like Angular, which I don't know, will die. So
Yeah,
maybe one day React will die too, because Next.js is getting popular and popular. Svelte and Next.js are getting
yeah. I don't know
super
about
popular.
Svelte, but maybe the other ones will get more popular someday.
Yeah, that's
So
a.
I
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, I was just gonna ask another question about. I'm really curious. So, Roger. So first, Roger, how long have you been in the field? I think Kevin, did your LinkedIn say was it 7 years or is it 9?
More like, like 6.5 around there. I started
Okay.
around 2016, so I guess going on 7.
I got two 2 months back. It's 2 years.
Oh, okay. Cool, cool. So, yeah, I'm really curious what I guess we could do both. What is your favorite thing or perspective about software engineer or tech in general, and what's your least favorite thing about it?
Sure. You want to go first, Roger?
No, you can go first. Let me have to
Okay.
think about it. Yeah.
Sure. I would say my favorite thing is I can pretty much make whatever I want to. Like the reason I got into it is because I've been playing games ever since I was 3 years old, and I wanted to learn how to make my own game. And that pretty much got me into dabbling with programming and wanting to be a programmer in the first place. So yeah, just the ability to be able to make things whatever I want to make. What I don't like about the industry is it's the interview process is a circus now, for no for one, and two, the industry can be very, very unstable. Like you give all these years to a company, and they just one day you just come online and you notice you can't connect to the work network that, you just find out you've gotten fired. So um, you always have to be prepared that whatever company you're at, they're gonna let you go. Like, here's an interesting thing: like, you might be cool with everybody at your current job. Things might seem super stable, but what happens? Another company buys your company out, and they want to put their people in place, so they axe your company. So you can never get like too comfortable. So it kind of led me to this idea of starting multiple streams of income, doing things like this podcast, for example. Like, I'm always trying to think ahead and guard against potentially tumultuous situations.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. What I like about is the reason I got into it, specifically in JavaScript, not in any other languages, is because I like building something that I can visually see. That's why I even got into front end development for that reason. I don't know, it creates some kind of happiness inside me to see something that I've built and it's out there and everybody's actually looking at it. That's the button that I created, that's the color that I
Yeah.
changed on that button over there. So it just like makes me happy that people are using something that I built. The part that I don't like is, I would say, just like Kevin, it is unstable. The interview process is bad too. But the biggest thing that I don't like is that it's how should I say, like, it's an ever changing industry. So you get most of the software engineers, like, we get comfortable in our positions. We like, let's just say I'm working in React, I get comfortable working in React. But 10 years down the line, React may not be the biggest thing that's there. Like, you're like a senior software developer in React or a staff at this point, and now you have to pivot and start from scratch again. It's not something that's kind of stable. You always have to keep on pivoting to new things. Like, you always have to be updated on new things, or one day you'll become obsolete as a developer.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, that's
really
a great
interesting.
point.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I just kind of want to piggyback off of that. Yeah, like that's one of the dangers of this industry is you can get shoehorned, you can get typecasted into some like obsolete technology or something. Like, say you are the React developer, React master, and then some brand new framework is hot and it takes over, and you don't really have time to learn this new framework because you got family and all this other stuff all this other stuff going on, and everybody else moved on to this new framework. Now you just become a legacy developer and you're stuck on like old projects, and that's going to limit your career. So it's like you constantly have to be kind of in the present, but also in the future. You have to think about what's hot. You just spend a lot of time outside of work dabbling in that, so your skill set is up to date.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense because I remember one of my friends told me that you can't really compare two engineers together. I guess people in their careers reach certain prestiges or echelons of skill where they're now SD2 or SD3 or so on. But known two engineers are alike, and that's the thing that I found the most interesting. That there was such a this kind of single player open world sandbox kind of attitude where you can pretty much go in any direction that you want and you can almost build your life in some kind of MCMMO reality. Um, and but that you guys are right. The same caveat is true that the skills you've been building could become obsolete and then you can become a beginner all over again.
This is kind of random, but it's sort of related. Is in software you can make money really quickly, but it's also deceptive. So the big thing is like save your money, but always live beneath your means because okay, say you're making 140,000, right? And then you say in your mind you're going to be making 140K going forward. So you buy a house based on that income. Now you're in a recession like now, and you get canned, and you're competing with 10,000 other FANG engineers, and the only job you can find pays you 110,000. But you bought a house based on that 140K, and now you're stuck with this super high payment. Like one thing I wish I would have never did was like buy an expensive car. My car payment is almost $900 a month, and yeah, it's a pain, man. After this year, it should be done, but I'm not doing that again. Live beneath your means, save your money, and as soon as you can, buy a house. Um, like the house market is so crazy right now, and you're
Mm.
always going to need somewhere to live. So when you can, get in the house.
The Lambo isn't worth it anymore.
Man, I wish.
It's
Honestly,
really good
like
advice.
I've been seeing on LinkedIn too, like I think this is like news that's been going on viral on LinkedIn. Like this person worked at Microsoft for 16 years and he got an email at 3
Yeah.
a.m. saying thank you. And I'm like, I'll probably cry. Like it will hurt my soul if somebody like sent me just an email saying at 3 a.m. when I've worked at that company for 16 years. It hurts. Like it hurts really bad. I'm like, it's too much. It hurts
So
me
I, I,
so
my, I have
much.
a
Yeah, go on. So
I have a story. It happened to me at one of my jobs. I gave my 2 week notice, and then a week into that 2 week notice, I try to log on my work computer, and I'm locked out of the network, so I couldn't even say bye to anybody or anything. He just cut my computer off like a weekend. Cut access to the network a weekend, and I was a guy that was like delivering all these projects over there, doing all this work, but you know you're expendable at most of these companies. So that's not to say don't always work hard, but you have to realize you know have a backup plan, and just in case. That's why I always say stay visible, stay engaged on LinkedIn. Like you lose your job, you want to be able to jump into another job in a couple of weeks. You don't want to be like completely disappeared out of the community, and now you lost your job, and you have to reestablish all of those connections, and you're unemployed for months.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I totally agree. And I was thinking that um, I guess with my previous perspective on how LinkedIn was this chore, and at first when you have 90 connections and it says add everybody you know, and you really want to get to that 500 plus margin, that's like kind of the first main LinkedIn goal that says like you've made it, and it's like but after that, then you don't really know what to do. But I started to treat LinkedIn just like any social media, and I set a lot of goals for
Mhm.
myself, and one of my weekly goals was just to like check LinkedIn every week. If it's just, you know, on the bus or like, in passing, and I just kind of scroll through it like an Instagram or, anything like that. Um, and I started to realize that someone posted on LinkedIn that says like I only use LinkedIn, when I'm job searching or something like that. Um, but I feel like the biggest problem and the point that I'm trying to make here is that when you go all the way back down to zero and you have to reestablish yourself, it's so scary and it's so intimidating because it really is just marginal progress over a long duration of time. And if you're trying to reestablish that network, in such a short amount of time, I mean, you're going to put pressure on yourself, and truly, that's just not it's not possible. I mean, you can't just go from being a beginner to like a 2-year engineer, faster than you want to. It takes everyone 2 years to get to that point, and I feel like one of the biggest things that helps me as an engineer is I stopped pretending to be better at things than I was, and I started accepting the
Mhm.
terms of my existence. Maybe it's a bit philosophical, but when you actually are a beginner at something and you make beginner level mistakes, then it's really common for everyone to criticize themselves or like shame themselves or even other people. But then you just accept your terms and you're like, no, I'm actually a beginner. I deserved, it's a rite of passage to, screw up this badly. And, then you graduate from beginner to intermediate, and I feel like the biggest problem is that we pretend to be better at something than we are, and are disappointed when, reality doesn't meet that expectation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
That's like
Yeah.
every day, like
You,
somebody's
you,
posting on LinkedIn saying some React hack, React use effect hack. I'm like, man, I should have used that in my code. Like,
yeah. Yeah, you can. That's another thing. You never know it all. Like you can be in the industry for
Yep.
20 years, and there's always going to be something new. So, like a lot of times, a beginner, we want to be like, yeah, I want to become an expert in 2 years, but the breadth of knowledge is so much you can never know it all. So you can't allow yourself to get frustrated because you're ignorant on this or that matter.
Yeah, that's why like companies need to hire junior engineers because they are the ones who are like
Mm,
updated on the latest knowledge. Like if I'm working at a company, I'm not that updated. I'm more updated on the company's code base more than what's going on outside the company, in the community. So all these junior software engineers who are coming in, they bring in all this knowledge. Bring in a different perspective to our code base, and that helps a lot. Like like rebuild, if you're trying to rebuild a new app, he knows the best stuff compared to us.
Yeah, would you guys say how often, however often it is, but how often would you admit to, I suppose it's only to a peer or a higher up at your company, that you just don't know something and you have to, like, Google for it, or, I feel like it's very often that I'm like, I don't know how this works. Or I think oftentimes I say, I could give you a brief definition just by my ability to, combine these words together, but not a concrete definition. You should probably tell me what it is.
For me, I think,
standard.
yeah. So for me, I think it depends. Most if I don't know the answer to it, because it also depends on your company culture, like on your manager and everything. My manager and everybody, they're pretty open. Like if I don't know something, I'll just let them know that, hey, I don't know, but I'll research and get back to you. The same way managers say something like, oh, I asked my manager something, is like, I don't know, but I'll research and get back to you. The same answer that I give them back to.
Yeah, I'll just tell you, hey, yeah, I don't really know about that. I had to look it up. I kind of feel like people appreciate you being honest because it gives you like more credibility, especially if you're known as somebody who delivers. People are gonna trust you. Okay, yeah, he's gonna get it done, and you say, hey, I don't know this, but this is the process I'm gonna take to get it. I'm gonna go on Google. I'm gonna research it. You give them a game plan on how you're gonna learn that particular thing, but if you're one of those guys who just like supposedly know everything, you're just making stuff up. People can eventually see through that, and they're like, "This guy's just talking." Like you don't want to get that kind of reputation. So yeah, I find honesty really pays off in the long run. But you gotta know how to present yourself. You have to
Yeah,
give them the confidence that if you don't know it, you're gonna find out.
Yeah.
yeah, it's a really good point.
It's always good to be the person that the team looks up to in few things at least. Like let's just say you have knowledge about React. Like if somebody has any question, they come up to you and they ask you that question. Like Justin, like let's just say like you have more svelte knowledge than me. So if I join the team, I'll be like, hey Justin, like you're the one who created this app. You have been through all this, so I'll come up to you. It's good. Like when you're at a company, you need to be an expert. Like it's, I think, I don't know who said this, maybe Sean or somebody, but you need to be a T-shaped developer. You need to be an expert at one thing and like know about all the other things.
Yeah, that is a reality, man. You can't know it all. So, what you have to be able to do is called, they call it soft skills or emotional intelligence. I'll also say leadership. You have to know, okay, this is my expertise. I can't know it all, but what I can do is I can reach out to others who do know that particular thing. And that's why it's important to have those social skills. You have to network within your organization, reach out to different people, find out what they know. And then, when a question comes up that's outside of your expertise, you're able to reach out to them and say, hey, Sean, I'm not really versed on this. Can you give me some insight on this? And it's just being proactive, really. And that's really how you move up quickly into those leadership positions. You're at the end of the day, you're not a walking encyclopedia. It's not your mission for you to know and solve everything. The ultimate mission is to solve the problem. And whether you have the knowledge or whether you are leveraging someone else's knowledge base, you have to be able to get it done, and that goes back to the reality of the situation. We can't know it all, so we do have to reach out.
Yeah, I think it depends upon your manager too. Your manager has to be the one, or your team lead, one of them, has to be the one that gives you tasks so that the whole team can solve the problem as a whole. If somebody has a problem, like one has knowledge in JavaScript, one has knowledge in HTML, one has just knowledge in CSS, like they need to be, three of them need to be experts in all these, but they don't know the other stuff though. So if somebody else has a question, they can always go to this person. If somebody else has this question, they can go to the other person. So if your team is built like that, it will be way easier because you know who to talk to, who to reach out to if somebody, if you have a problem.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I feel like my team is structured like that. Everyone, Kevin, you said this earlier that you wear multiple hats at a startup, which is definitely true. Um, but I feel like everyone has their area of specialty that
Mhm.
really makes us successful. And I guess going back to your previous question about maybe standing my ground or getting rid of that fear of kind of knowing what I'm doing is when um, I started to notice a shift in myself in our team leads where I was owning my section of the company a little bit more, just my corner, um, and just responding to any question in any channel relating to, what I was working on and taking responsibility for things and not throwing myself under the bus, but constantly like looking around to see if people were asking about the things that I was doing and responding to it actively instead of kind of just seeing all the messages fly by and not really sure what was right or wrong or when it was my decision truly, um, which was something Sean really surprised me in Sean where he um, I remember him telling me and it scared the hell out of me. He was like, "Oh, should I do this way or that way?" And he's like, "Whatever you think is best, we should do that." And I was just like, "How do I know?" Looked at my hands and I was, not sure if they were real or not at the time.
Yeah,
No,
but
yeah,
it's nice
absolutely.
that um, they're giving you that opportunity to choose. That's how I have grown at my company. Like they gave me time and the opportunity to learn things, and by doing that, since the other parts of my team, the other members of my team, they were doing other things, but since they gave me that specific opportunity, I went deep in that for a few days. Like I learned everything that I can so that I can teach other people, like the other teammates, so they can catch up on that. It's a nice culture that you guys have at the company.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite features, and I guess, I mean, I've been told my experience is slightly uncommon given so much autonomy and um, so much choice and so much respect. Honestly, I've been given so much respect as a junior because our team is really built of people that were in my same position. My best friend that got me this job was in the same spot, and my the other DevOps engineer was self-taught. And so we are a ragtag team, but we all kick ass, and we all respect each other for it a lot. But is this? I know Sean once told me that you'll never find a community like the one that we have at my company anywhere else. And he's been in the industry for about 30 years. But what is the typical experience, and um, you know what what can you tell me about, I guess, the other side?
For
You want to go,
me,
Raja?
yeah, for me, I would say my culture at my company is basically almost like Sean's. The first the first time that I was on this podcast, Sean was here too, and while I was talking to him, he was pretty impressed by how our culture is at our company, because they give me time to. They give the junior developers time. They give me time. Like, you take your time to learn some things so that you can give that knowledge back to the teammates, back
Mhm.
your teammates, because they may be working on something more important, and you're working on something that's like, not that important, but has to be like integrated sometime later. Like, I used to work on Stripe. Like they gave me some time to learn Stripe, so I learned it from top to bottom. Like, I went through every API, like looked at the architecture that we already have, checked like what's in the future, like what can I extract from here. So anytime they have a Stripe questions, they can always come back to me for learning it. And as I say, like, my company is good. I like the culture that they have. It's pretty open. Like, I can talk to my manager anytime if I have any pain points or if I'm taking like I need an extra day or something. They're okay with it, and that has helped me grow a lot. Like, I've learned a lot in a small amount of time.
Mhm.
So, Ding 10K has a question. I want to be a programmer. What programming languages should I learn first? So, I'll take
Definitely
this one, and
not
y'all can
Java.
pitch in that. What was that?
Definitely not Java. That's what.
Okay. Right. Yeah. So, I made a video about this earlier today, or something I was thinking about. And I would say, like, don't get caught up on the specific programming language. Just pick something that you're going to make something in. Think about what kind of application you want to build, and look up the predominant language for that. So, say you want to get into game programming, you can do Unity, and you pick up C sharp. You want to get into web programming, JavaScript. Because here's the thing: most of these languages, they there's a lot of similarities between them. You're pretty much doing the same thing in these languages, but with different syntax. Like, you're doing if else, you're doing loops. Some of these languages have classes, but you're changing variables. Like, at the basis of all of these languages is logic. So when you pick one up, it's not going to be that difficult to pick the other ones up, because you're pretty much, giving a computer command in logical order. The syntax is slightly different, but you can pick up another language pretty quickly. But, I would say, if you absolutely need a language, pick JavaScript, because you can just get in a browser and play around with it really quickly. You don't have to install anything. So start with JavaScript, and, you can go from there. What about you guys?
I would say pick Python. I have strong opinion about if someone is trying to learn a language, they have to pick Python just to learn it, so that you get your data structures and algorithms. It's way easier in Python than even in JavaScript, compared to JavaScript at least. Once you learn your data structures and algos, then you can choose your own language that you want to get into. Like, do you want to get into front end? Do you want to get into back end? There is enterprise, like, which uses a lot of Java in the back end, or .NET. So that's my opinion.
It's interesting, Raja. I never heard that before about Python. Maybe I'm pretty bad at algorithms and data structures, so maybe I ought to learn Python. Um, I would say I learned in JavaScript. I think that's pretty traditional. Um, TypeScript is really changed how I see it. I think it's a steeper learning curve than JavaScript. Of course, I learned JS first. Um, TypeScript really has enabled me to change the way I think about it in terms of an entire app or an entire system. JavaScript alone will let you do what it wants, or will let you do whatever you want. Um, but if if there's just some language, C sharp, JavaScript, anything Python that just makes sense to you and that you have the most fun with, then I would just do that, because whatever you enjoy the most, you're going to do the most. And if you are trying to break into industry, then and you don't know, I don't know, just try them out and see if one catches your eye or one's really intuitive. JavaScript is really obvious to me. So it made a lot of sense with the logic classes I had taken in college. So um, yeah, I'd say just see what feels the best and just go with that.
Absolutely. His next question is, do I need math?
No.
I would say yes for that question. At least if you want to get deep into the data structures and algos part of the equation, you don't have to, but it's good to learn, because sometimes you look at things and you're like, okay, how does this thing actually work? Like there is today I was talking about pub sub functions, and it's basically a queue. It's in GCP. It's a queue where, like, you pull things from the queue, or the queue pushes things into a function. And it's like, what is a queue? Is a data structure. You need to know the inside of queue if you want to know how pub actually works. If you don't want to, that's your thing. You don't have to learn data structures and algos. But math, I don't use math in my at my work at all. So
So yeah, yeah. What I would say is, just depends on what aspect of programming you're doing. If you're going into game programming, graphics programming, math is a massive field. There's so many different branches of math. If you're going to go into that, yeah, you absolutely need a strong mathematical background. Um, if you're just doing CRUD applications, like typical form-based applications, you probably don't need a strong mathematical background, but it is going to help you understand what's really going on. So I would say it's something that you should invest in down the line, uh, especially if, like Raja mentioned, you want to get into data structures and algorithms and making sure your code is efficient. Because computer science is just built on top of mathematics, but right now it's abstracted to the point where we don't really have to deal with it as much. So to be employed, no, you don't need much math. But if you really want to grow your career and open up opportunities, especially in like areas of graphics and data science, AI, machine learning, all of that, yes. So ultimately, I would say invest in it down the line. But to get employed, you don't need a mathematical background. And we have a special comment. Sean says math is essential if you're interested in games programming or data science.
So I'd like to revoke my comment. No, to tell you the truth, I haven't really used much math at all, and since I've started, but yeah, I mean, I take your advice very openly, Kevin. It sounds like it's something that if I invest into, that it'll help me down the line.
I mean, I don't think you need to go deep into mathematics if you don't want to. It's like almost like the question, like, do you need JavaScript for learning React JS? You don't
Yeah.
need to go deep into JavaScript for you to learn React JS, but it would be good to have a a foundation before you move on to React, something like React JS. Math is, I think, as Sean said, I totally forgot about the data science part of the programmer. But yeah, AI, ML, like data science, if you want to get into that, yes, you need to learn math. At least, what is that? Discrete structures. I don't know. I don't know much about math. So,
I would say, like, if you're cool with making forms based applications, that kind of stuff, then probably don't need it too much. But if you really want to get into the cool stuff, graphical simulations, uh, all of the advanced applications, you're going to need math, and that's really what opens up your career options. And I say, there's a lot of people coming into software. And, they might have the boot camp experience where they know, React, SQL, the basic technologies. So what are you going to do to distinguish yourself? How are you going to make yourself stand out? If you have a strong mathematical background, that's really going to make you stand out. That's going to give you a lot more opportunities. And that's something that people can't pick up in, 2 or 3 months. So I would say it's definitely worth investing in math, because it opens up a lot of opportunities and it distinguishes you. So yeah, did you guys have any other questions or any other comments?
No, I did a lot of math in my studies, but I don't remember anything. I don't use anything at work, so I don't. Honest, I mean, that's what I've seen a lot of talk online too about not needing data structures and algorithms for
Mhm.
doing JavaScript, for doing front end development work at least. Most of the time, like you don't need to know what a tree is in JavaScript 'cause when you're building forms and everything. But if you look at the DOM structure, it's basically a tree that's inside there. So if you want to get deep into things, yeah, it's good to learn DS and Algo, but you don't have to. If you want to
Yeah, I
get
agree.
paid, you don't have to learn anything.
Yeah, I see like there's the surface level programmers who are comfortable using abstractions, and you can make a good living doing that. But if you really want to get deep into your field and really understand what's going on, yeah, math, data structures, and algorithms, all of that, that's going to give you uh, extreme in-depth understanding, and that's going to give you the expertise to become the go-to guy. Like there's certain problems that you just can't solve if you don't have at least a minimal mathematical background or know when to use a proper data structure and algorithm. Like we can often avoid those situations, but occasionally they're going to come up. And how you really make progress in your career is you're the go-to guy. You're the guy who can solve the problem when nobody else can. So if you have that background, that's going to be you.
Is actually like DS and Algo, they come a lot in optimizations, a lot of game programming, I guess. Like when you're programming, writing games, you need a lot of optimizations in that compared to JavaScript. Takes like 2 seconds to load the page if you really want to get deep and optimize the whole thing. Like if you want to create your own framework or something, you definitely need to learn how data structures and algos work, and a lot of game programming too. Like if you want to look at optimization, I think a Java React framework, I don't know if it's a React framework or a JavaScript framework, it's called Quick. It was like written by like some game programmers. It's like super optimized, just as it said, it's quick. Like compared to React and Angular, like they have a lot of um, they take a lot of space, and there's not an easy way to optimize them.
And yeah, I just want to make one final point on this. In the tech industry, there's kind of trendy knowledge, and there's foundational knowledge. Like trendy knowledge is like the frameworks and things of that nature, where you learn it. It might be good for 2 years, and now a new one pops up. Then all your old knowledge is obsolete. And then the foundational knowledge is math, computer science, the underpinnings of the field, and it's honestly that stuff is really boring, but it's something that carries with you no matter where you go. Like you learn data structures and algorithms, you can utilize those data structures and algorithms in any language to write efficient code. You can use math to model whatever needs to be modeled in any language. So um, ultimately, if you want to have knowledge that persists and you're not throwing away every other year, go for those foundation. Spend a lot of time on those foundational subjects. I need to do more of it, and but yeah, that's what I would advise if you really want to become a standout programmer.
And if you want to get a job at Fang, the
Yep.
first question they'll probably ask you is to do some, like add to numbers or something like that. That's the DS and algo question. Find like reverse a linked list or some lead code kind of questions, and lead code is full of DS and algos.
So I have another question, I guess two for each of you. Um, and so first, they're kind of similar, but first, I have been at my job for about 6.5 months now, almost 7. And so when you were at that 6 month mark in your career, what's one thing that you wish you knew that you or didn't know that you know now? And similarly, when you were 24 years old, what's something you wish you knew about life that you know now?
Sure. You want to go first, Raja?
You can go first.
Okay, sure. So, in my career, one of the things I wish I would have known at that point, 6 months in, was it's not really coding based. It's just life based. You're perceived on how you present yourself. So I was like super casual, super laid back. Cause you know back then the programming lifestyle is like
Yeah.
wear whatever you want. Come how you feel. So I would actually go to work in sweatpants and like a shirt or whatever. And it was in the Bank of America building. So I would be like going up the elevator. There might be like a lawyer next to me, and I'm in sweatpants, and it makes you look sloppy. Like you may not think people pick up on that, but how you present yourself. Are you dressed well? Are you a good communicator? Like this is the reality of it, especially when it comes to promotions and things. You're dealing with other humans. So say me and you have the same skill level, but we're at a small company, a startup, and the company, they need to do some layoffs. Who do you think the boss is going to lay off? If you're cool with the boss, you're going to dinner with them after work, every other day. Versus me, I'm completely isolated. I just come in, do my job, get out. I don't do anything extra. They're gonna fire me first. You know what I mean? When it comes time for promotion, he's cool with you. He's gonna pick you over me. So it's the things external to coding that you have to watch out for that have a huge impact on your career.
So
And
would those be defined as soft skills, or are those like even softer than that?
yeah, I would say you can put them under soft skills, emotional intelligence. Just it's basic life knowledge. You know what I mean? Like I remember way back in the day when I was young. I was looking for one of my first job, and you're ignorant back then, especially if you don't have somebody telling you. I went to the job interview with a wife beater on, you know. I didn't get that job,
Wonder
so
why.
so yeah. And in terms of life lessons at 24, I actually was living at home until I was 30, but that was because I was in a small town. So sometimes, if you really, really want to make progress, you have to get out of where you're currently at and go to where the opportunities are. So I was living under the poverty line, making $11 an hour, working at a hotel until I was 30. I was living at home, and obviously, you feel like a loser because you're that old and you can't even support yourself. But that didn't really mean that I didn't have the potential, because as soon as I got out of there, out of Killeen, and moved to Dallas Fort Worth, within 6.5 years, I'm making like close, over 200K in total compensation. So I went from 23K to 200K in total compensation. And one of the huge reasons for that is I moved to somewhere where the opportunities were.
Yeah, that's good advice. And yeah, congrats on that path. That couldn't have been easy, staying at home until 30. That sounds really difficult.
Yeah, you just kind of realize, like, that's why I don't ever get on anybody for staying at home, because you don't know why they're staying at home. Like, they may not be somewhere where there is a lot of opportunity, but you just have to be brave enough to get out of that small town. You have to be aggressive over your opportunities. You have to go get it. I learned in life that rarely does life just bring the opportunity to you. You have to go get it.
Yeah, yeah, well said.
Yeah. For me, I would say it in my career at least 24. I was probably cruising through life because I was still working as a front end developer, and I would say I wasn't learning anything back in. I wasn't learning anything. I used to do my work. I used to do it quick. I used to do my work, but I wasn't learning anything. That I felt that at 24, I was like, hey, I'm doing my work, but I'm not gonna go anywhere in life. like anyway, at least in my career, if s- do the same work all the time. I realized this once I got into the startup later on. I was like, oh, you I did not actually know anything about React.js. I did not know how the code was set up. My code was like pretty small. I mean pretty big, but it was pretty easy to understand. There are like few folders, everything was in JavaScript. Like coming to the startup, I had to learn some things. Like then I got to know that hey, this like what you were doing back then was just like staying stagnant. Right now, like I'm learning skills that like I'm progressing. Like I'm actually feeling happy that I'm learning new things in my at my work, and it's making me happy that I'm trying to like I can see my career, like I can see myself being a senior software engineer. Back then it was just like, is this work? Like I don't need to do anything, just get log on, do your work, log off, move on, do something else. But right now I'm actually like trying to improve every day. I'm trying to like get some new knowledge. And in life, I would say maybe try on new things. That's what I would say. And also like buy things, I guess. I mean, don't buy if you don't have the money for it, but uh, help yourself like with the things that you're going to buy. Because I used to be kind of stingy. I wasn't like buying much. Like I used to like save. I used to buy all the cheap things to save, but at the end of the day, like I didn't like them. I wasn't feeling happy with the things that I bought. Like after that, like slowly I started spending money. I was like, okay, this is $300, this is $400, it's okay, like I can uh, that will help me out. And the more that I buy in my range, I'm not gonna buy something that's like thousands of dollars, but it's like I bought this desk that I have that's for $400. Spending $400 on a desk is like, back in the day I used to be like, oh, I don't want to spend $400. I can spend like 200 or something,
Mm.
or 150. But the value that this desk has given me is more than what I paid for it. That's what I look for when I'm buying new things. Like I recently bought this IKEA drawer. I used to have like a plastic thing that used to break down all the time, but it's like the value that thing is bringing me, even though it cost me like $200, is more than what I paid for it. So if anybody is looking for something, like look at the value of that thing and don't look at how much it costs. Only if you have the money for it. If you don't have it, please save up the money.
Yeah, that's really interesting. My brother has a terrible desk, and it shocks me every time. But it's actually really interesting. I was thinking about this earlier because um, it's not. I don't have intuitions that I'm going too slow or anything. My boss performs certain teaching moments and exercises that I've been really enjoying. He's showing me all the cool stuff that I'll soon be able to build. And I guess I'm just kind of worried that after 2 years, I won't be an SD2, and that I will have, been in the field for 2 years, and I'll have that second year, and I'll go interview. Or I guess is it junior and then SD1, or is it just junior and then SD2? I'm not sure, but um,
It depends upon your company. If you
Yeah.
go to Amazon, you start as SD1. If you go at a smaller company, you are called a junior engineer. But
got it. Okay. Well, yeah, I guess I feel like I've been growing a lot. I think working at a startup is kind of dog years in engineering terms, but um, how do maybe perhaps someone that might be a little stuck, or I don't know if you want to describe the situation you were in more, Raja, but um, I guess I'm just kind of nervous that that could be true because I mean, like we were saying before, there's not an easy benchmark to gauge whether you're at that skill level or not. There's so many different things to learn and be good at. And I guess we can go back to your comment about the foundational skills, Kevin. But yeah, what are your guys' thoughts on that?
okay,
Sure.
so I would say go and watch Brian Pulliham's video, as we did
Okay.
a podcast with him. But it's very nice. Like his I think his first the first time that he was in, not the second one, the first one, because I talked a lot about this. In the second one, I talked a lot about promotional stuff. You can go watch the second one too if you want to. But this is the exact same topic that we talked about. That let's just say you're feeling that, hey, I'm not somewhere that, I can be, or I'm not able to get to SD2, right? Go talk to your manager. That's one of the biggest things that uh, like I've learned myself from Brian, while his podcast, he gave a lot of knowledge to me. It's like, go to your manager, tell him, hey, give, like, in the next 6 months, what do you want me to do? So, or ask him straight up, just ask him, hey, I want to be an SD2 in 2 years. Give me a game plan that, like, I can do at this company, so that I can become an SD2 in 2 years, that you would give me a promotion. And if it doesn't give you a game plan, write it yourself and, like, check with him. Or if it does, like, I think your company has been there for some time, so they probably have something going on. They'll give you the game plan. You go through that checklist, and he'll go through the checklist every few months, every 3 months or every 6 months. You both meet, you talk about it. You're like, oh, okay. Oh, Justin did this. Okay, take more. And once you start doing it consistently, you're like, oh, okay. So this is what my manager expects from me. So this is what an SD2 feels like.
Hmm.
Once you have ticked off all the checklist, you do it consistently for the next 6 months or 1 year, then you'll feel confident that, hey, I'm an SD2. And you ask your manager, if they don't have the position at that company, you basically, like, switch to another team or a different company. So that depends on you and your manager who you talk to.
Yeah, that was some good advice from Raja. For me, I don't care about the titles. I don't pay attention to it. I pay attention to whether I'm really growing and able to solve these problems. So, I was kind of like in a senior developer role in my second job, which I had after a year, because okay, when I started my career, Angular 2 was just coming out, right? It was in beta. And I got let go from my first job after about a year. And then I went to my second job at Citigroup. And what really distinguished me, what kind of gave me the leadership capacity was uh, I was able, I knew this brand new framework that not many other people knew. These guys have 5 years of experience, but they didn't really know Angular 2, but I did. So I was kind of able to be the guy that everybody came to. And when you're that guy, you're able to move up in a company really quick. And I don't really worry about the title, because you could be a SD3 at one company, but at another company you have a different title, which is so-called lesser, but you're getting compensated way more. You know what I mean? The key to me is to always make sure that you're making progress and you're being compensated what you believe is a fair amount. And but the key is, okay, so I know you like to work out. Think about this. Do you see more results if you do a light workout, easy, you have no problem doing it, or do you see more results when you work out to failure?
Oh yeah, working out till failure definitely is the better option.
Exactly. And it's the same thing with programming. You have to really put yourself in situations where you're challenging yourself, you're solving difficult problems. Spend your free time building applications from scratch. And, that'll give you the ability to talk through any interview. You can say exactly what you're doing and why. And, when you're really good, when you're the go-to guy, when you can solve problems, you can pretty much write your own paycheck. So I don't get stuck on the titles. And, if a company, this may not sound pleasant, but if they're not paying you what you're worth and you're really skilled, your visibility is up, you know what you're doing and you're showing people you know what you're doing, your inbox is going to be flooded. So it's not going to be difficult for you to get paid what you're worth.
Yeah,
Uh,
I want to correct myself on Brian's video. It's the second video that you need to watch, not the first one. And you can reach out to him. he does career coaching. He's an ex Coinbase manager. He has like 20 plus years of experience in tech and like program management. So you can reach out to him if you wanted to. But his advice, like, you need to watch the second video where I have asked a lot of questions personally for myself, and it will probably be the same for you too in that
Okay,
video.
great. Yeah, I'll have to look that up after this.
Yeah, most definitely check out Brian Pulliam. He really knows what he's talking about. He unveils a lot of the secrets behind getting promoted, and the whole promotion process. I didn't know 95% of the stuff, and I've been in the industry for 6.5 years. So yeah, he's definitely somebody you want to reach out to.
Hmm.
But yeah, guys, did y'all have any other questions or closing thoughts? Because I know it's getting kind of late.
No.
No, I think I'm good.
Oh man, yeah, we appreciate you coming on, man. You'll definitely have to come back.
Okay, yeah, for sure. It's been a lot of fun to tell you guys my story. So thanks for giving me the spotlight.
Yeah, we definitely enjoyed having you on. All right, we'll catch y'all later. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Peace.